This is our Splendide washer. It's a model WFL1300XD. We've determined that there's a cold water leak. We don't know exactly where the cold water leak is coming from. We have to remove the dryer, remove the top cover of the washer, and then I can see where the cold water leak is coming from. I know for a fact that it's a cold water leak because when we turn on the cold water line that just supports the washer, we get water accumulating in the drip pan that we installed. I recommend that to everybody because otherwise, when you have a small water leak, you may not notice it if it's back there behind the washer for a while, and then it does all sorts of damage before you find out about it. And we're going to try and do this without having to move the washer. By removing the top, it's just 2 Phillips head screws in the back of it, and then you lift up and pull the top off, and there's no wires or anything connected to it. And that should give me access to the cold water and the water flow for the soap dispenser, because the cold water valve assembly also includes a separate control valve that sends the water to the soap dispenser. And we don't know which of those two is leaking, but we know it's one of those two, and we'll find out for sure once we pull it out. We can start working on removing this lid so that we can get access to the control valves back there. For safety, of course, unplug it. You don't want to accidentally touch some wires together. And then these 2 screws. I got 1 screw right here, another Phillips head screw right here. See, that's tight. I'm just going to use my Phillips head tip on my ratchet wrench and undo this by feel. I need to feel where I'm working at here because I can't see what I'm doing. Doesn't have enough resistance for the ratchet. But that means I should be able to do it by hand. There we go. By hand, turning that screw the rest of the way out. The screw is into plastic. You don't want to have a whole lot of force on it. We got another one on the other side. Hopefully we can get it as easily. This time I just removed the ratchet handle without moving the screw. That way I don't have to re-find where to engage with the screw. Now we've got our 2 screws out. So according to all the information that I've been able to find, we should now be able to lift up from the back of the washer and remove the lid. All right. Wow, that was easy. There we go. Okay. So, as expected, this just pulls right out. And shouldn't be a big deal. So now, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go outside and turn on my cold water. And once I turn on my cold water, I should be able to find that there's a leak somewhere from this soap mechanism delivery system, or in my cold water valve, which is right here. So the cold water, let me just make sure I got this right. Let's see, grab these hoses here a second, make sure you know which one's going to where. Oh, that's the hot water hose. Okay, so the cold water is on the outside here, and we're going to either get some leakage from this cold water valve, or we're going to get leakage from this soap dispenser, because with the hot water on and the cold water off, there is no leak. But if I turn the cold water supply on to the washer, there is a leak, and it's not from the hose connection, so it has to be in this part here, because once it leaves the two valves here, it goes through one line, which I'm trying to find where that is. All the water goes in one line down the soap dispenser part and into the washer. So the only place it can be leaking, and it only be leaking cold water, is the valve or the soap dispenser. So I'm going to go turn the water on, and then we'll come back and see what happens here. We've got water dripping from back underneath here. I'm going to keep the light back a little ways. You can see the water dripping there every couple seconds. And it's coming from the cold water valve, which is right here. We've got to replace the cold water valve, and that should solve all of our problems. We found out for sure that the water is coming from the bottom of the cold water valve back here. That's what I showed you with the water dripping there. So based on that, I've turned off the cold water again, and now what I need to do is disconnect the cold water hose. I have to disconnect these two connections, and we need to keep them straight in terms of when we put them back in there. They've got the housing of this one is gray, and the housing of that one is white, so white's in the back, gray's in the front. Easy enough to remember. There's a little tab, and I'll show you how you depress that tab in order to remove those. We've got one screw that's on the back of the valve, and then we've got two screws here holding the valve in place. So the valve is held in place by 3 screws, Phillips head, and we're going to take those out. First, I'm going to get these connectors out, which shouldn't be that difficult. Well, I say that, and then it's that difficult. Don't want to damage the thing in the process, that's for sure. Just push this detent back good, and this connection will come right out. Well, the other one did. There we go. Blue and red in the back, and black and red in the front, and we got gray in the front and white in the back. So the 2 darker colors, or the 3 darker colors to the front, the 2 lighter colors to the back. Now we're going to work on the Phillips head screws. I still haven't disconnected the water. Turned it off, I just didn't disconnect it. And it was only on here finger tight, and it's supposed to only be on here finger tight. Yeah. Now I gotta find where that screw is by touch. Okay, it's at the top. It's just at the very top center of the water inlet. So I just got to get my Phillips head screwdriver in there. There we go. And take this screw out. We got our little screw holding the back of the valve in place. Now we got to take out these two screws that are holding the cold water valve to the water flow system here. So they call this whole white thing the soap dispenser, but it's actually how the cold and warm water get mixed together as they go in. But only the cold water channel goes through the soap dispenser. Okay, so you want to try and get all the way to the back? Okay, well, let's put some light down there. And so that's the back side. And you can see the cold water is on the left. And that's the one we're removing. There we go. Now let's see if we can get this cold water device out of here. Okay, not wanting to cooperate. All right, so I saw a video where one person said you have to take out this whole white plate that holds both the warm and the cold water in place. So I'm gonna have to go turn off the hot water to the washer. Turned off the hot water and disconnected it, and we've disconnected the hot water hose. Now I am going to screw off of the hot water valve and then the screw holding the cover in place that the hot water valve is connected to. Get this screw here that's holding the hot water valve to this white cover. I was told was only being held in place with one screw, which is right here. It also has this indent, which is completely hidden behind here. So you have to reach in there with a long, thin screwdriver and push down on this indent, or you can probably get it from the top outside with a thin screwdriver also. But you have to get that indent down to get it released. So now we can get our defective cold water valve off of the system. It just dropped right down after we did that. You can see a hairline crack there. It barely leaks a little bit.
Right here?
Yep, right there. So that's the guilty culprit. Want to hand me the replacement one? So now we're going to work on putting the replacement in. I'm going to use this to partially hold it in place. Put this in place and the cold water valve at the same time so that I can use this to hold it. I'm going to go under here and get these connections to line up. And those grommets kind of hold it in there. And then I can put that in place, including the locking tab. And now it's pretty well fixed in place. And I can just put these screws back in. Got these two screws back in here. And we're going to put the control wires in. Red and blue in the back. Red and black in the front. There we go. The wires were pushing up against it. I'll drop these. screws in and get them into the device, into the valve. Get the other one here. There we go. Now we got it in the right spot. And I'm not going to use a power tool putting two plastic. I need to put the screw that holds this thing in place. And I need to put the screws in that hold the valves to that cover. So I'm putting this one screw in. There we go. Just had to get it started and then get it straight. Now everything's back together. Okay. And we got the two screws in top for each of the valves. Well, that was easier than I thought. So we got the screw that holds the plastic plate in place. And then we're screwing each of the valves to that plate right now. And that basically completes the repair, other than putting the lid back on the washer. Let me connect both of the water hoses, and then we can work on checking for leaks. Not feeling anything but nice and dry, which is exactly what we want. And we're going to do an express wash to test it before I put it back together, as I don't want to have to take it apart again. We've got a couple hooks, one right here, one right here, so we have to engage those. And then these are the two tabs that hold it in place on the back. So, and those two little feet go into these holes right here. So we got to get those lined up as we come down with this. Okay. That doesn't seem to... That's good. So now I got to put the two screws in place back there. And again, I want to make sure I don't lose them. Need light. Okay, that one in. Put this one in. And when we put this one in, technically, we are done with the washer repair. But we do need to reinstall the dryer.